Welcome to Women and the Businesses They Own, the podcast that goes deeper than business plans and branding. I'm Sherry Hooper at Summit Wealth Partners, and I sit down with powerful women entrepreneurs to explore what it really takes to build something special, something bold and beautiful on their own. I ask the questions others don't, questions that spark truth, honor complexity, and celebrate what it really means to lead as a woman in business and in life. Hi, Jen. How are you today?
I'm great, Sherry. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited about this podcast episode. You are episode 5. So,
Yay!
right, every couple of weeks, we're putting out another podcast. So, I'm really excited about that. But if you could begin for us before we get into these really fun questions, can you just tell all of our viewers a little bit more about you personally and then professionally as well?
Sure, that's a long history. I'll do the short version for you
Okay.
all. I left corporate life 27 years ago, which is crazy. It's been that long. I loved my corporate life. I worked for Kraft Foods. However, back then, in order to promote, work your way up the corporate ladder, you had to keep relocating. And I got to a point where my oldest was 3 at the time, and my husband and I just didn't want to keep doing that. We didn't want to have to keep moving to new territories, new markets, starting over. And it wasn't fair to his career either. So I always had this bug to be an entrepreneur. I don't know where that comes from, but just always had that little itch. So when I left my corporate job, we moved back to the Grand Rapids, Michigan area, and I started a franchise called Cookies by Design. I ended up starting it and 2 days later delivered my second daughter. That was not part of the business plan that we sit and write out. Everything took longer to launch the business. She came a little early, thankfully healthy. And the Cookies by Design business was this gifting business. We did these cool cookies on sticks and we would deliver them. My husband literally picked me up from the hospital to get me and the baby, and we had to deliver cookie bouquets on our way home. And that was my start of entrepreneurship. Thankfully, I survived.
Hold on one quick second. I don't want to lose your momentum, but so are you the one baking these cookies too and designing these cookies?
Well, I had two employees that started on, day one, and on day three, I went into the hospital. But yes, we were baking them, decorating them, putting together, answering the phones, doing all the customer service, and delivering.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I thought when I had my daughter, I wasn't prepared quite as much. I thought I could have one more week before I would go into labor, right? I thought this is my first one. I have plenty of time. And I remember going a little bit earlier and they brought me files to the hospital. I
Oh,
know your
right.
pain. I know your pain. I was like,
Yeah, it's like
wait,
the
I just had a
business,
C-section.
the business doesn't stop because you go off and have a baby.
No, no.
Yeah. So anyway, I weathered all of that. I owned that business for over 20 years and started a second business called Cupcake by Design that I went on to franchise, became a national franchise. And I also started another business on the side called Just Between Friends, which was another franchise business. So I've owned 3 businesses, have since sold them all for a profit, which was a great learning curve for me. And now I am a business coach. And I love working with women entrepreneurs who are in like year 2 or more, and they are building businesses, but they're also building families because I know what it takes. And what happens usually around year 2 or 3 for these entrepreneurs is they kind of plateau a little bit. And I really help them become more profitable. So I have a proven proprietary 9 pillar system that I take them through. And our focus is on how do you start paying yourself more? How do you build a 20-year business like I did without losing your sanity along the way?
I think we could all use that, all of us. I love that you did that. So going back again, you had 3 businesses that were national franchises. That's pretty
Correct. I
incredible.
started one of them, but bought into 2 of them.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Bought into 2 of them, but still sold for profit, you mentioned. And what was the last one? It was something friendship. What was the
It
last
was
one?
it was a children's consignment sale called
Oh,
Just
okay.
Between Friends.
Oh, just between friends. Got it.
And you're going to love this because the reason I bought into that was because I did not save enough for my child's college education. We have 3 children. And my oldest was probably 13 at the time. And we had that look at, my husband and I looked at each other and said, oh, we're not really prepared. And this little business came along. It was a seasonal business. And I thought, well, let's do that. We'll use the money from that to pay for college education. So it served a purpose. I owned it for like 5 years and then sold it.
Well, that's a great idea. I love that. Kind of
Yeah,
works
it was
in
a
my
little
world
problem
a little
solved.
bit. I've never put that in a business plan before. But it works. I love that. I love that. Yeah, so you have three children. Do you have two daughters, did you say, and a son? Your son's the
I have
youngest?
two daughters and a son. My youngest is going to be a junior in college, and I'm also a grandma now. I have two grandchildren. And so, I became an entrepreneur for freedom and flexibility.
Hmm.
And when you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, especially women, that's one of the top reasons that they choose entrepreneurship is they want to own their own schedule, they want that flexibility, that freedom. And back then when I started, it was all because I was raising children. Well, now I wouldn't trade it for the world because now I get to babysit grandchildren. I have some time for me. I have a little bit of flexibility. I can work the things into my life that I enjoy doing. And I don't think I'd be able to do that if I stayed at corporate. So for me, that was key. A lot of other, women entrepreneurs, they start their businesses because they want higher earning potential. They
Hmm.
might feel trapped in a 9 to 5 job and they have a vision and want to increase. So there's all different ways, but for me, it was freedom and flexibility for my family.
I like that. I think we really need to keep those family priorities, up there. And I mean the growth of families too. I keep hearing all these birth rate issues. So I think that it's really important that we make the family the priority to have it, and then we make the work that we do flexible, in order to be able to do both. So I love that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and ask some of these questions. And as I mentioned to you earlier, when I was kind of creating some of these questions, I love them all. So we'll see how many I can get through with you just for time's sake, and to make sure that everybody stays tuned in. So, what's one personal commitment or routine you had to let go of while building your business? And do you ever wonder, was it worth it?
Mm. So, I was building my business and I had a 3-year-old daughter and a newborn at the time. And our neighborhood, all the women in my neighborhood, most of them didn't work. They were stay-at-home moms. And I loved that about my neighborhood because they always say it takes a village, right? Well, when I was first starting my business, I was working like crazy because when you first start a business, the freedom and flexibility doesn't come until later. And I was also trying to keep up with the Joneses, if you will, as far as lifestyle with the other moms. Attend all the play dates, attend the moms' night outs of doing things. And both sides have hard jobs, but I was trying to do both. And what I found was it was starting to exhaust me. And so I had to personally learn how to start saying no to some social type of
Mhm.
engagements in
Yep.
order for me to stay focused and get some rest. And that's hard. It's hard to when you're doing something different than other people around you. It's hard to kind of find your way. It's hard to be okay with saying no. But you have to learn how to do that. Otherwise, the burnout rate is very high.
We all think we're super moms and we don't need sleep and we don't need to eat and we can just get by. But in reality, if mom isn't healthy, nothing else is going to get done either. So
Right.
that's good. So, I mean, but in thinking back on that, was there really any regrets to just saying no to a little bit of the extra social?
There wasn't because I still could socially see these
Yeah.
great friends of mine when we were with our kids.
Yeah.
I had to say no to the adult only stuff
Oh,
because
okay.
it was hard for me to keep up. So no,
Oh,
there was,
gotcha.
of
Yep.
course, it's just a choice at the time. And sometimes when you're the only one building a business and other people are doing other things, that can feel isolated. But no, in hindsight, it all worked out.
No more bunko, you mean?
No more bunko. You're right. That was really big back then, was bunko.
I can feel your pain, Jen, because that was kind of the same thing. I felt like, doesn't any other mom work in my neighborhood? I mean, you're better. You gave a lot of grace. You were happy for him. I was kind of begrudging sometimes. Like, why am I the only one that has to pack up my kids and take them to daycare and do the different things that are required? And I was so thrilled that I could, really my whole goal was to keep my kids in daycare just 2 days a week and find other family members solutions that way. So I knew that they were still getting, some really good daycare, but at the end of the day, you pick your kiddos up and it's like everybody else, my grandma and my dad, they all got the best 8 hours of my kids. And I just picked them up and they were crabby and they were hungry and they, you got 2 or 3 hours before they went to bed. And I was like, ah, so you really are sitting there thinking, is this really worth it? But obviously in the end, we're both here we are. So yep, we made those choices.
Well, and also too, my kids learned a lot by watching me build a business.
Hmm.
And they were lessons that I couldn't have taught around the dinner table or they just watched, right?
Yeah.
They learned tenacity, they learned grit, they learn problem solving, they learn community. So they learn a lot. So when you're in the thick of it, it feels like you said, oh, everybody's got the best of my kids but me.
Yeah.
I'm, we're all exhausted at the end of the day. Why am I doing this? But the things they say to me now that my kids are adults and they can share that with me is priceless and really probably my proudest moment. More
Oh,
important than selling a business for profit is what my kids learned by watching me do it.
oh my gosh, I love that. There's some good kiddos there too.
And one of them wants to start to become an entrepreneur, and part of me is like, "Are you sure? You got a great job. Are you sure you want to leave that?"
Right? Are they in the corporate life right now?
They are, and they love their corporate jobs. They're just
Yeah,
doing it on the side, but they've got that little entrepreneur bug in them.
I bet they do. I think it's genetic.
I
All
guess. I don't know.
all right, the next question here is behind every win, there's usually something unseen. What's one private struggle you carried while everyone else saw you succeeding?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of times when you start businesses or you grow businesses, everything's focused on the top line number.
Hmm.
Everything's focused on revenue, everything's focused on sales. And so you'd have a really busy holiday or you'd have a really busy sales month, and everyone thought you're just crushing it. Well, I had a lot of cash flow issues at the beginning because I didn't know what I was doing. I started this business, had not been surrounded by entrepreneurs, did not really understand the difference between cash flow and just revenue or opening up your checking account and you got money in there. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
ooh, it's in there. I'm good. And so we had some struggles with cash flow that honestly were very challenging. And back then, when I started, Facebook wasn't even around. And there weren't these communities of people that you could get a lot of help easily. You
Hmm.
had to really vocally raise your hand and say, I need some help. Is there anybody out there? And being a woman, I think I felt, oh, I better not show that I have a weakness because I don't want people to think my business might not be strong or my employees to get wind. So you hide a lot at first. You want to appear that everything is great and going really well. Well, there was one day, my husband and I and our two daughters, this was before my son was born, we were driving to the Wisconsin Dells. Did you ever take your
Oh,
family there?
yes.
Like water park on steroids? And I got a phone call from my manager. It was a Friday. And I'll never forget it because I picked up the phone and she said, I don't know how to tell you this, but our paychecks are bouncing. And I was mortified. I was embarrassed. I started just crying. I can't believe I let this happen. How did I let this happen? 2 days ago there was money in there, but didn't look at cash flow, was just looking at sales revenue. And then to make matters worse, we didn't have an emergency fund. We didn't have anything set up like that. So we had to stop at a bank and take out a cash advance on a credit card
Oh.
to fund our checking account in our business to make payroll. And so those are really kind of humbling moments for you as a business owner. And, in hindsight, everything happens for a reason. I went back. I thought, okay, I've got to get help. I have to learn the difference. I need to learn how to manage all this. And so I did, and thankfully was able to create a profitable business that lasted 20 years. But I think a lot of times, especially in today's world, everything looks great from the outside in.
Hmm.
We see all these entrepreneurs on social media and we hear all about these seven-figure businesses. That's like the buzzword, grow a seven-figure business. Well, make sure you really understand what's going behind the scenes. I've seen million-dollar businesses that weren't making any money. They weren't profitable because they were spending over $1 million just to generate that in revenue.
Oh my gosh.
And, I always say that we need to support each other and it's okay to not act like you have it all together because there's absolutely no way anybody can know everything about entrepreneurship. And we're not gifted in all areas of entrepreneurship. I have 9 pillars that I teach on, and not everyone loves all 9 pillars. So you need to surround yourself with the people that do love the pillars that you don't. And it's okay to ask for help.
That's a good idea too. I was just thinking though, in that moment, you hear you're going on vacation, right, with your girls, and that kind of blew up. And oh my gosh, that would have been hard to have overcome just that, try to still give that family vacation that you were intending. And then having to make this withdrawal that you're mentioning, I mean, that takes spousal support, because in the end, that could have really been a deal breaker without the right support, without somebody saying, you can do this, probably still had to maybe motivate you a little bit, keep you going, because then you got help. It wasn't like you felt like over the weekend he just, like all weekend kind of thing. I'm not getting that from you. You're not sharing that, and you're being so transparent, and you're really sharing some great things because I think that's what people need to hear is that it is not all rosy going into business and you are going to make mistakes and sometimes those mistakes can really end the business. And you're right, as women, we do think we're super women and we never want to show our weaknesses as you mentioned. We have to kind of stay in this place of knowing that we can do it all and we don't ask for help. And so this is a great reminder, I think, to all of us that it's not always what it appears. We're always putting on our shiny shoes or our good faces to kind of keep the outside looking better than what it really might be. And then I think the support system too of just not only friends, but family and other business owners. It does take a lot to make something like this really happen. And in the end, like you said, you sold it for profitable after 20 years and it's a franchise. So that was new to me. I didn't realize that you weren't just a franchise owner, but you created the franchise. And
I created the cupcake piece. So what had
okay,
happened, I was 10 years into my journey of owning
okay.
Cookies by Design. In 2008, recession came.
That's what I was going to ask you about the recession. Yes.
Yes, the 2008, 2009 recession. So, I weathered the cash flow issue, got through that, got a little stronger. Life was humming along, the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. And then an external threat, a recession happened. Well, a lot of my business, because my background was in sales and marketing, was corporate. I would go out and pitch our cookie product to companies like mortgage companies and realtors and people that would send gifts. And so we did a really good job of corporate business, which was great because it was reoccurring revenue. I could count on it. Well, when the recession happened, that started drying up very quickly. And so I was faced with, what do we do? We're 10 years in. Sure, I could close my doors and be like, hey, it was a good run. I don't have the energy to weather this. Let's just off we go and I'll go do something else. Or I can kind of figure out how to get out of this. Well, at the time, there was a show called Cupcake Wars hitting
Oh yeah.
Food Network, where people would come on and bake these cupcakes, and these top chefs from around the country would, critique the heck out of them, and they would, somebody would be a winner with the best cupcake. And I remember looking around our market, and I remember talking to my manager, and I said, you know what, there's nobody doing cupcakes except for the local grocery stores. And those were just your little chocolate vanilla with a swirl and a plastic pick that would say happy birthday on it.
Right.
And I said, we've got a bakery, we have a staff, we have raw ingredients. Let's start making some cupcakes. So we just started making cupcakes. I didn't ask permission. I just dove in and did it. And of course, the first cupcake we made was chocolate chip cookie dough, which is perfect for a cookie business, right? So
Yep.
we started making these decadent cupcakes. Well, they started selling. And it was interesting because during a recession, people are watching their pennies,
Hmm.
but they're also looking for ways to make themselves feel better. And we found that a $3 cupcake was in budget and it made them feel better.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we started attracting a new audience into our business. Well, then I thought, okay, we've got something here. So I started building out a brand and I built out a brand called Cupcake by Design. I ended up doing all the branding, everything, and then I ended up turning it into a franchise and it's in 56 stores today still.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Now that is something that you can look back and go, look at what I did. I mean, that's a legacy if I heard one. I love that.
It is, and it was a pivot. We solved a problem, and the timing was just right. It all just aligned. But that was kind of part of, I guess, I had a choice. I could either quit, try to sell, which would have been very hard to sell during a recession, or make lemonade out of lemons, and that's what we did.
And you sold it right out of the same store, right? I mean, you didn't have to
Yes, it
like
was.
have two different locations. You just did it right
No.
out of your store. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so was there ever a moment when success felt lonely? And how did you learn to navigate that space?
I think entrepreneurship can be one of the loneliest positions out there. When you go to work for somebody else, you have coworkers, you have a boss, you have a team, you collaborate. People are kind of telling you what to do. When you're in entrepreneurship, you're leading and you're learning and you're having to wear all the hats. And a lot of times it can feel really lonely. You always hear the saying it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it can. And back to what we were talking about earlier, it's also very vulnerable and hard for people to say, I would love some support in this area, or I would love to collaborate. A lot of times we're not willing to be that transparent. And so I have always said that the success to entrepreneurship is the who's in your life.
Oh, that's good. Hmm.
I say the why. It starts with why. Simon Sinek wrote a book about it. The
Yep.
why is your launch pad. The why is your desire to get going and to the desire to be an entrepreneur. But what keeps you in the game are the who's. And you need to surround yourself with people that are ahead of you. I say older and have more years of experience because they're your calming presence. They're going to be the ones that are going to be like, it's okay. I've been there, weathered it. You're going to be okay. I also say bring in some younger people and listen to younger people because that keeps you relevant. It keeps your business from getting stagnant. It helps you know what's happening and just even language, everything. And then you just need people that can just listen. I have a girlfriend that owned a business and she was struggling getting corporate sponsors. She owns an event business and she called me up one day or texted me, help. It's kind of like your phone a friend, right? I'm hitting a wall. I can't get through this. So we met for coffee. And sometimes just talking it out loud to somebody who gets it is all you need just to keep you going. So the who's are critical. You need who's in your life.
I love that. I do actually like the who's. I always say it's who that help you really stepping stones or get you where you need to be or put you in front of the line, so to
Yeah.
speak. Those people are really important, but I like the way that you're phrasing it. Um, I like the way that you're phrasing it because it's not just the ones that I'm mentioning that might get you ahead a little bit, but you're talking about the longevity of the relationships that you have. And I have to say, I love the way that you phrased it for the young people, keeping you relevant. I wouldn't have thought that that would have been the thing that maybe you would have said because I don't think our young people get enough credit. They get kind of beaten down a little bit for other things, but keeping you relevant is that, I mean, that's an eye opener for me. You're right, in order to keep
Yeah.
this. Hmm.
Right. We don't want a business that's going to plateau because we're so stuck in our ways or we just have done it this way.
Yeah.
And so that's why sometimes bringing in the younger people can help you with that. And earlier you had mentioned spousal support. I mean, my husband was my biggest cheerleader, but he's not an entrepreneur. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
You really need to surround yourself with other entrepreneurs as well.
Oh, that makes sense. I could see that too. Okay. So I'm going to just kind of drop down a little bit here and see if, well, I don't know. I really like this one. If your business could write you a letter at the time that you sold it, what would your business say to you now?
My business would be like, great job, high five, you didn't quit, you kept persevering. I'm really proud of you because I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. Today I was talking with a client and she was so focused on lack of results. She hadn't had any new income coming in a week. And we get so hyper focused on what's next. That's just
Mhm.
how entrepreneurs are wired. We're overachievers. We want what's next. And a lot of times we forget to reflect backward and look how far you've come. And during those 20 years of owning my business, cash flow issues, having to pivot during recession, all sorts of things, it was an up and down. And when you look back at that and think how much you grew, it's so, it's just so rewarding. And entrepreneurship, your personal life and your business life are intertwined. It's really hard to contain them. It doesn't really work that way. And you grow so much. Like whenever you meet a group of entrepreneurs, they are the people that love the self-help books. They love podcasts. We binge on all that stuff. And as a result, we end up growing personally and professionally. So, my business would, I think, give me a high five because I was debt free. I had staff members that stuck around for 20 years. So that to me was a win. I created really cool, memorable moments for people with cookies and cupcakes. And I was able to sell it for a profit, which is a legacy for my family.
I think that's tremendous that even after their paychecks bounced way back when, they stayed with you 20
They
years.
stayed with me. I'm
Those
sure
are
I begged and pleaded, but yeah, they stayed with
those
me.
are really good things that you just mentioned though, and all of that because people don't stay at jobs 20 years anymore. And to have that consistency and obviously the culture, which I think is really important that people can also maybe they can't put it into words, but culture makes a difference. And certainly as an entrepreneur, I mean, I have one calendar and it's business and personal. It's all in one place because I can't do two phones or two calendars or two anything, right? And so you're right. It's always about this blending. My daughter told me, I think I like what your daughter said better. My daughter told me, I think it was just a couple weeks ago, we were on our way to an open house, and somehow she said, yeah, Mom, I always felt scheduled in. I never felt like
Oh,
like I always it's like, okay, Anna, I can be with you from like 3 to 4 or after my next appointment. I don't know what it was, but I was thinking to myself, oh gosh, all the things. Couldn't I just get a little like high five from my daughter of all the things that you do, and you're like, you felt scheduled? I felt flexible because I
right.
I could show up. Anyway, I was just like, oh man, so when you're like, this is a priceless moment, these things that your kids have said, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna remember that. I will always remember that, but not quite the same way. But it is a blend. I definitely understand that.
Oh,
And
it is a blend. And trust me, there were days when it wasn't very rosy. My kids were like, I need you in work tomorrow because we got this huge order and you're going to sticker bags and you're going to fold cupcake boxes. So, they were in there too, doing some things that they didn't
right.
want to be doing. But, in the end of it, it was just a balance and a blend. And hey, at least you scheduled your daughter in. Be proud of that.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, what do you mean? I made sure I was there. I didn't miss a game. I didn't, I always picked up from practice. I can remember in the days of no cell phones back in high school after a volleyball practice. I mean, I just hoped my parents came or I had to get a ride from somebody else, but they certainly weren't involved in sports the way we are today. So
No, very different, very different.
very different. So was there a moment you almost gave up? And what was it that actually pulled you through? Because you've mentioned a couple of things, but was there a time when you were so close to just throwing in that towel, so to speak?
Yeah, from day two when I had zero maternity leave to the cash flow to the recession to being short-staffed. But the journey of entrepreneurship, we always paint this crazy picture of it being so hard, but at the end of the day, it's actually very rewarding, right?
Hmm.
And I had a choice. If I gave up, then what? I was going to have to go find another job, and I had to remember why I left my really good corporate job in the first place. And it was back to I wanted to be at the practices or be able to pick them up from practice and be at their games and volunteer at school and do those things. And I would not be able to do that if I gave up.
You threw in the towel, so to speak. So do you mention to other people that book by Simon Sinek? I mean, obviously you read it, your Know Your Why, or I forget what the actual title is. I've read it. I've actually had the pleasure of having him as a keynote speaker even. I really loved watching him and hearing him speak, but that book, Know Your Why, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
I think it starts with why.
starts with
Yeah.
why. Thank you.
Yeah.
So do you
Mhm.
tell people, is that something when you're coaching even now, is that a book that you tell them to really dig deep and know their why?
Actually, by the time they work with me, 'cause I
Mhm.
feel like that book is more for startups.
Okay.
And by the time they work with me, we're focusing more on the who's.
That's the who's. Okay.
Because the why is ingrained in them. And what we're focusing on is profit. Because what I find is 1 out of 2 small businesses only make it to year 5. That's the
Yeah.
statistics. And, they call it the failure rate. I call it the quit rate because a lot of times there's lots of reasons why they quit. But if you're making good cash flow, if you're paying yourself regularly, if business is working well, most likely you're not going to quit.
Right.
And so if we can start paying you regularly, not what cash is left over and I get a paycheck every other month. Making sure as an owner you're getting paid just like your staff, that can be a pivotal difference between sticking in the game or leaving. And so we really focus on that. And then we focus on systems so that you don't get burned out. We focus on attracting more clients and just making the business a little simpler. We tend to overcomplicate it.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can make a business very profitable and simpler and with the right focus and the right steps. And so yes, sometimes we have to talk about the why you're choosing to do this, but I find that's more a launch pad.
Okay, so I think this would be a great time. Can you tell us, you've given us the history of the three prior businesses. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing today? You mentioned business coach. What is the name of your business? Do you have employees or is it just yourself? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so my business is Next Wave Business Coaching. And the reason I got into it was because of the pandemic. I had sold my business, my 20-year business of cookies and cupcakes in the fall of 2018. And then the pandemic happened, and I'm watching all these small businesses flounder. And I thought, you know what? I have a skill set that can help these people. If nothing else, give them hope because I had weathered the recession. The pandemic was another external threat, things out of your control. Everything just feels like you don't know what to focus on. So that's when I decided to get into business coaching, which I love. I really do feel like it was my God-given purpose. And my focus is called Next Wave Business Coaching. And like I said, I love working with women who are building businesses and building families. And we focus on three things. How are we going to improve your profits? Which comes down to pricing and how you're running your business. How are we going to scale your revenue? And then what are we going to do to simplify your business on the back end so that the business doesn't own you, you own your business. So I love, I do lots of different, I have three key programs. One is like a business breakthrough session where I just come in and evaluate what's going on because I'm really good at seeing the hidden opportunities and seeing the visibility, the vision.
Mhm.
I can walk into a business and be like, you know what, if we did this, this, and this would make a difference. And then my signature program is a membership where business owners come together and I train them on the 9 pillars. They get real world feedback time, real time feedback from me. So you're taking out the loneliness, you're taking out the indecision. I call it, I'm your second brain. And then I do have what I would call like,
Okay, Jen, so we're just going to go ahead and continue from where we were. And as we were just talking about, sometimes things happen in business. So
that's right.
this is
Sometimes
one
things
of those
happen in
things.
business. Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
yeah, I work with entrepreneurs established. They've been in business at least 2 years. I say, you should have a revenue of 50,000 or more. And all my clients have seen double-digit growth. When you have accountability, when you have focus, when you have strategies, when you have someone else you can talk things over with, you will see results. So I work on the foundational stuff of your business, and that is going to carry you for however many years you stay in business. So I love what I do. I do have a free workshop. It's called 3 Steps to a Profitable Business. So I can send you the link. People can sign up for that.
Yeah, I would love
And
that.
that's a great way to kind of understand a little bit more about me and just give you some really good tips on how to become more profitable.
Yeah, please do that too. I think that's going to be really good for a lot of these ladies that are listening and interested. I think accountability is one thing that just popped out at me that you said, because we all need that. Sometimes, I think that's the difference between having a home gym and going to the gym, where we all have the ability to work out at home, but we never do. The accountability
Yep.
makes such a big difference. So,
Such a big difference because entrepreneurs are creative beasts.
mhm.
You hear squirrel syndrome, shiny object syndrome, and it's true. And a lot of times it's mindset. You can have the best laid out strategies, but if your mindset gets in the way, that's going to derail your success and your progress. And, we might try something and we don't hear back from somebody, so then we quit and we try something else. And then next thing you know, we're just confusing our audience. They have no idea what we do. And you just need somebody to tell you, just stay the course. It's going to be okay. This was a really good strategy we came up with. Just like we hire you to get us to our financial retirement goals.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's okay to have a business coach to help you get
Yep.
to your business goals.
Yeah. I think that would bring great success. What do you think the average membership is then that you stay with these business owners 2 years or so? How long do you actually stay with them before maybe they're ready to launch on their own again?
Most of them we work together for 6 months.
Okay.
So it's not a lifetime commitment because you
Yeah.
can get a lot done when we're focused.
Okay.
And, this isn't homework. This isn't extra work. They're implementing these things in real time. So it's actually saving them time.
Yeah.
And I've had some that, have worked with me a year or more, but, we've had some great success stories. I have a client in Anchorage, Alaska, and, she came to me in the negatives and we turned her net profit around 193% in about 7 months.
Ooh, okay, so two things that I just heard you say in that one is one, amazing profits. Two, you obviously don't have to be in the same city to work with you.
No, I do a lot virtually.
Yeah, so that's another good thing for our listeners to understand is this doesn't have to be just right here where we happen to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but you can work with people all over the country.
Hmm.
That's great. Okay, I hope you hear from a lot of women. Let's do a couple more questions and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. If you could leave your grandchildren, I think you said you have two. I just don't remember if are they both granddaughters?
A girl and a boy.
Okay, so let's say grandchildren. If you could leave your grandchildren one business principle baked into a cookie, kind of like a, maybe we can think about those cookies we get when we go for Chinese. What would be written in the icing?
Mm, I think I would tell him, try. It's okay to try. It's okay to fail. Just go for it. If you have a desire, if you're excited about a product or a service, just go for it. You learn so much about yourself along the way.
Hmm. If you don't try, you can never succeed either. What is it? You probably have read this somewhere. The greatest wealth in all of, I don't know if it's the world or in America, is in a cemetery for all
Oh,
the people that never wrote a book, never wrote a song, never tried a recipe, never, they just didn't, right? So I love this advice that you would give to your grandchildren. It's okay to try because we were losing out on so much wealth of entrepreneurship, so much creativity for everybody that never did try and they took it right with them. The
mm-hmm.
grave. I that has always stuck with me. All right, so I think that we really did some good things here, and we already talked about some of your coaching, which I really wanted to bring in and make sure that everyone listening had an opportunity to understand what you did, how you could help. You're going to go ahead and send me a link that I can share as well. And so they can always reach out to you too. I'll just put that information when I put it out onto Facebook and LinkedIn. They'll be able to do that, and you'll be able to share it as well. Make sure you have that link. So, for everyone listening, if this podcast resonated with you, please consider sharing and telling others about it so they can receive notifications for future podcasts. And if you know a female business owner that would be interested to be a guest on another podcast, please reach out to me as well. And now we're going to go ahead to the lightning round. And this isn't just, this is off the cuff questions, not anything that you have to think about too seriously, but certainly gives a little bit more of information about you, a little bit more fun personality type questions. And the very first one is, what would be your favorite candle scent?
Oh, always the fall scents. I love the pumpkin.
Oh my gosh. Right up my alley. I love that. How about, are you a bubble bath kind of a girl or a face mask?
A little bit of both. If I get to do both at once, then that's a
Just
great
lay back,
relaxation.
soak both on. Okay. Did you have a celebrity crush growing up and who was it?
I don't know if I really did. We were, yeah, I don't think I did. I think it was the Happy Days. I can't even think of that kid's name, that little Chachi, Chi Chi, Chachi, whatever. That's showing my age. But, of course, I probably had a poster of him. And then when I was a young adult, it was Brad Pitt of the world. And
Of course. I
yeah.
was actually thinking Chachi. I was like, I wonder if it was Chachi. Scott Baio
Yeah,
was
Scott, that's it. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name, but yeah,
Baio,
he's always fun and cute.
right? Or Ricky Schroeder.
I liked the funny ones.
Yeah. How about, well, and this one, I don't know about this one. We talked about a couple of books, but book you recommend to everyone.
The E-Myth.
The E-Myth. Who's that
Yes, it's
by?
a oldie but a goodie. I think
Okay.
it's Michael Gerber. I have it right here on my shelf. And it
E-Myth.
talks about how to not be the doer of your business because it's really hard to scale a business if you're the doer.
Oh, okay. I love that one because that could obviously, that probably goes with your pillars and your coaching very well. How about a song you blast when you need a boost?
I don't know. I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor.
That's pretty good that you can come up with that one.
And lately, I'm a Morgan Wallen fan, and it's what's the one that I'm a little crazy, but the world's insane? That's a good one.
Okay. Wow, those are good songs. And actually, I mean, who wouldn't be a Coldplay fan recently when he's
Oh, geez, isn't
all
that
over,
too much?
he's
Oh,
all over everything right now. I actually wanted to go to the Coldplay concert because I think it's his like wrap up tour, retirement tour kind of thing. I'm like, I don't want to miss it. I've missed so many.
yeah,
I should say other artists that maybe have passed away or done the retirement. And man, every time I looked it up, I was like, oh, you got to see it. Look at these fireworks. Look at this. He's got such a great thing going on. And then I'd look at the price and go, oh my gosh, is that worth it? And you have to travel. And,
yeah.
he never came to Michigan, I don't think. So,
I don't
anyway,
know. Well, maybe he'll be like Cher. Didn't she have like three
three,
farewell tours?
three
So,
tracks. All right, I'm going to go back to I Will Survive. I mean, why not? And then a little Morgan Wallen, who everybody loves. That's fun. Well, Jen, before we take any the wrap up here of our podcast, is there any final words, anything that you want to leave with our viewers as we finish up today?
no, I think we talked about a lot, and I always say entrepreneurship is it's a gift. And people have good hearts who are entrepreneurs. They want to solve a problem for someone else. They want to give. And I see women, they just don't pay themselves enough. And I always say to women entrepreneurs, it's okay to make good money because good people go on to do great things.
Oh, that's great. Perfect. Perfect ending, Jen. Thank you for being part of Women and the Businesses They Own podcast. Thank you for ending with such a great note. Your story matters, and today you told it beautifully. And finally, to our listeners, remember, she came, she spoke, and she inspired. And we'll see you on next time.